before we go, I have a report for you all. And because the Boston Red Sox, they don't have an African American player on the team, not one currently. So I decided to do a report on some of the former past Black American Boston Red Sox players and just get their thoughts just on what it was like for some of them to play in Boston and their thoughts just on the decline of the Black American ball players. The Red Sox were the last MLB team to integrate when Pumpsy Green, all right, folks, joined the Red Sox in 1959, 12 years after Jackie Robinson played for the Dodgers. And you know what, folks? Dave from Harlem must have read my mind because that is where I'm going next, and that is what I was actually going to tell you all, okay? I was going to tell you all that the Red Sox were the last team to have a major league, a black ball player on their roster. That was, as Dave said, Pumpsy Green, and that was in 1959. And I am going to do a report on black ball players, some Black American players who play for the Red Sox, okay? And the last time the Mets won the World Series, folks, they, of course, beat the Boston Red Sox in 1986. On that Red Sox team was Don Biller, folks, okay? Don Biller was on that team, and Don Biller, that season for the 86 World Series Red Sox, had a team-high 31 home runs, and I was fortunate enough to speak with Don Biller a few years ago, and I asked him how he felt about the fact that just 8% of the players in MLB are Black American.
No, it bothers me a lot. It should bother the executives in the game. I know you can see basketball going overseas, and they're bringing a lot of players. See it in baseball, and I know there's some kids out there that want to play. They need that kind of role model out there to say, hey, I can make it to the majors. But it's different baseball because a lot of these young kids, they want instant gratification right out of high school. They want big contracts. So with the young kids riding on buses in the minor leagues that you have to produce to make it to the big leagues, they're not willing to do that. But in basketball, they don't have to do that. A lot of guys sign right out of high school, and they're on the NBA team the next year.
Hall of Famer Jim Rice was a member on that Red Sox team, as well as Dave Henderson, who had a series-turning ninth-inning home run in Game 5 of the previous series against California, which propelled the Red Sox back from a 3-1 deficit in that series to win it.
Austin, Texas. I was a football guy, but I loved baseball because of Jackie Robinson, really. I grew up in the 60s, and we had opportunities, to play football. Whatever the sport was, that's what we played, baseball. Baseball came natural to me. I love football and basketball. I played all of those sports, but I really wanted to play football. I really did. And at the University of Texas, they didn't have any black players at that time playing there. So the Orioles came along, and I got drafted, and I never looked back. To play 19 years in the majors and play with some of the players that I played with. I came up as a young player. Frank Robinson was a mentor to me. Brooks Robinson was locker right next to me. So we always had fights with the Yankees all the time, And, the American League East was just a great American league then.
After the 1986 World Series, the following season, Ellis Burks made his Major League debut with Boston in 1987. Burks played 5 seasons with the Red Sox, and I asked him what his time was like there.
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I first went to Boston, I thought it was like the best thing ever because I made it to the big leagues. I wasn't really concerned about that at that given time, you know, and people brought it to my attention as I was there my rookie year. But let me tell you, I went to Boston and I played my butt off. I mean, I brought excitement to the city of Boston as far as with my stolen bases, hitting home runs, hitting for an average, and it was just the way I played. The people accepted me very well. And, you know, with that being said, I mean, that motivated me to go even harder, you know. So that was my main objective, is to go out and play hard every day. Now, then I realized at one point we had Oil Can Boyd, myself, Jim Rice, Lee Smith, that was like six. Don Baylor was there late, yep. And there was like 6 or 7 brothers on the team, and you know, it was awesome. You know, I had people to relate to, but still in Boston, we were winning, we were having fun. Okay, and then maybe 3-4 years later, I was alone. I was there by myself, and there was a topic. This one reporter brought it to my attention. Do you realize you're the only African American on the team? I said, do I realize it? Of course I realize it, you know. And it was a big to-do. His name was Dan Shaughnessy, and it was in the Boston Globe and everything. And I think I had mentioned to Mike Marshall, I said, it's like if you have a guy like Mike Marshall who's white on a team with all African American, how would you feel? I mean, not that that's going to be a major problem, but you would feel a little bit out of place a little bit, you know. Who are you going to talk to about certain things? And then, not that I can't talk to a white guy about anything, I can, but you want to feel that comfort level. And I think maybe a month or so later they brought up Mo Vaughn, which was you know, a lift off my shoulders. I mean, the guy came in and contributed well. It wasn't like they brought him up just because. He deserved it. And he, as you know, Mo being from this area, I mean, hell of a player. Yeah.
So what was it like just when he became your teammate, and of course he was a great ball player?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, that was something that, you know, you have someone that you can just talk about certain things, you know, and that was always good with Mo and I. And it's the same thing with anybody else. I mean, if given that situation, you're going to feel the same way.
And, right, you know, and that's very interesting that even back in the 90s, early 90s, you were the only black ball player on the team. You know, now you see that a lot with a lot of different teams. You know, you'll see a team that'll only be one African-American player, and sometimes they'll be the only one. But just, what do you think today is like for some of these guys to be the only one on only 25-man rosters?
Well, I mean, it's I'm sure it's a hard thing to do, and to be the only, you know, player or African-American player in anything. For years, it was hockey, you know. You see a black player on hockey, and you're like, what? But now you see more because of the athleticism that these guys possess. All right, and as for now, it's tough. I mean, of course, you know, you have guys, I think the Pittsburgh Pirates, they have McCutcheon, the young third baseman.
Harrison.
Yeah, Harrison, and then another one, too, as well. But you can just tell the way they relax, they interact, they dance, they have fun. And that's what you have to do with this game. You have to take the pressure off yourself by having fun, you know. So when you can have someone that you can relate to and interact with, it's going to make it even better and easier.
You know, and Dave Roberts was on the 2004 Red Sox team who ended an 86-year championship drought in Boston. Roberts had a key steal in the 9th inning of Game 4 against the Yankees in the American League Championship Series that year that helped turn the series around.
It was a lot of nerves, excitement, and a lot of energy. And I was on a great team and a championship team, and a group that's has a bond to this day that's very strong. And you know, for me to be able to impact the series in a way by stealing a base and to have, you know, Bill Miller drive me in, is something that is obviously, you know, lived on, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of.
And Roberts now is the manager currently of the LA Dodgers, and he talks about the decline of the black American ball player.
Yeah, you know what, I think that there was points where I was playing where the percentage was higher of African American players, but you know, when you look at minorities, there's a lot more Latin players now, and obviously myself and Dusty Baker, the only African American managers, and yeah, you know what, I think that it would be great to see more African American players and managers going forward.
Seven-time All-Star Reggie Smith played the first 8 seasons of his career in Boston and was a key member of their 1967 team that made the World Series and lost to St. Louis. I asked him how he feels about there being so few black American players in the game today.
Not very good, because what's happened, they've gone to Latin America and gotten that player that has the same experience that the African American players had when I was coming along. That's one of the biggest differences is the experience. Those kids there are playing all the time, and their skill levels are accelerated because of that. And for economic reasons, where at the time they didn't have to draft that Latin American player, they could go and sign him for a whole lot less money than they did to sign an American player, particularly after the draft. So the African American, the dark-skinned player, became the Latin American player.
And finally, Smith on what it was like for him and other black ball players when he entered the major leagues in 1967.
We all knew that we had, other than our color in common, is that the struggles that of the nation at that time. We were coming out of an era of Jim Crow, segregation, and the gains and benefits of being able to play in the major league from a socioeconomic standpoint was significant. So we all knew that we had that, and it was something that we had to pull together and encourage each other to do and give back the things that those that came before us had provided us.
All right, folks, and that was Reggie Smith, one of the greats of the game, played his first few years in Boston, like we just heard, and finished off in L.A., where he was there for many years. And I did that report because, again, there are no African-American players currently on the Red Sox roster, so I decided to do a report on some former black American Red Sox players. One thing I want to point out that Reggie Smith said, one misconception that a lot of people have and that he also has, is that he says that, you know, a lot of people say this at times, that the African-American player is being replaced by the Latin player because Major League Baseball teams are going out there and they're paying Latin ball players a lot less money and they're less expensive, they're cheaper, and they are replacing black American players. Well, that's not true because, for one, it's not like, all right, there's a lot of white American players in the major league, so if that was legit, then white American players, they would be doing the same thing and not paying them and just having a bunch of foreign players so they could pay cheap. But it's not true. Also, when you get to the major leagues, okay, even if a team signs you for however much they sign you on the international market, when you come into the majors, you have to pay the player major league standard contract, okay? But the other thing is that there's still a Major League Baseball draft, and there's several rounds, and that is still a thing, and it goes on. So every team has to draft players, okay, a lot of American players every year in the draft, and when they're signed, you can't pay them, okay, pennies, all right? So American players, okay, African-American players, they aren't being replaced because these teams are getting Latin ball players on the cheap and replacing them because it's more affordable. Like, that's just not true. So that's one thing that I just wanted to mention. And we thank Reggie Smith and all the guys because everybody has their own ideas on why the decline of the African-American ball player has happened. So we appreciate everybody for giving their opinion. Before we go, I just want